Predicting the outcome of this election was basically impossible.
Let me show you what's going on at the bottom of your screen there. And that is a whole lot of nothing definitive.
She wasn't wrong. And think about why. You had a Liberal Prime Minister in Mark Carney who gave a victory speech.
Hello. We will build Canada strong, Canada free, Canada forever. Vive le Canada. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Except he had no idea whether he'd just won a majority or a minority.
And you can see there at the bottom of your screen, we have still not made a call about what kind of government Mark Carney will be leading.
His Conservative opponent in Pierre Poilievre, by the end of the night, he still didn't know whether he had even won his own seat.
Carleton, that's the one that everyone is talking about. Everyone's still wondering, and that's because Pierre Poilievre down more than 3,000 votes to Liberal candidate Bruce Frangjoy.
This has already been the most topsy-turvy Conservative result of our lifetimes.
And the NDP, their entire future has been thrown into turmoil because their leader, Jagmeet Singh, definitely did lose his seat, and the party didn't even win enough ridings to be recognized as an official party in the House of Commons.
It's difficult. It's a rough night for the NDP in general.
Finally, underpinning all of it, an American president in Donald Trump who decided on the morning of the election to tell Canadians to vote for him. I think that's what he was suggesting when he said, elect the man who has the strength and wisdom to effectively make Canada the 51st state. The whole night was very unusual. So let me take you through Canada's wild election. I still remember at exactly 9:17 p.m., so we're a couple hours into the night, I'm watching this Montreal reporter, Kwabena Ojuro, except I'm not watching him at all. I'm fixated on this series of NDP signs behind him. That's Jagmeet Singh's name on the wall, a whole row of Jagmeet Singhs, on a night where he's about to lose 70% of his party's seats over the course of the evening. But that sign is just hanging on for dear life. And then there's this draft. And I point this out because that sign fell right around the time everyone was starting to realize that this was going to be a very bad night for the NDP. And that matters a great deal in a Canadian election where the zero-sum math can be really tricky because there are 5 parties to track. And you can't really only look at the 2 of them who are the only 2 to have ever actually won an election in Canada, because the other 3 parties always end up splitting the vote. If they all swing Liberal, that would be a big deal. If they all swing Conservative, that would also be a big deal. But it's never actually that simple. And so
let's look at a vote change on PEI here. What you will see there, the Liberals up 11.2 percentage points, Conservatives up 5.8, but look at who is down. The Greens. The Greens have been such a huge force in provincial politics on PEI, but look, they're down 7.3 percentage points, NDP down 7.2 percentage points.
Once it became clear that the NDP and the Greens were hemorrhaging votes in Atlantic Canada,
both the Liberals and the Conservatives up considerably, and to an extent at the expense of the NDP as well as the other parties.
And that in Quebec too, the Bloc Québécois was bleeding out. Basically, every party but the Liberals and Conservatives was collapsing.
Bloc down 11, that would be a devastating amount of losses for the Bloc Québécois in Quebec.
It was clear that the Bloc Québécois was going to lose seats. Their vote share was down according to the polls, and they were playing a lot of defense.
This catapulted the country into a situation nobody really knew how to handle.
One of the things we heard both from the Conservatives and the Liberals was that they don't actually have a model that can predict an election like this, because we haven't had a 2-party race in a very, very, very long time.
Like my colleagues, I do not have a template for this kind of polarization between 2 parties.
Now, you might have thought, what's so complicated about this? If the NDP is more left-wing, their votes should just swing to the center-left, Liberals, right? But it wasn't that clear-cut.
If you look at the percentages last time around, the NDP was in second place with 28% of the vote. Their support right now has plummeted to 8%, and almost all of that has been picked up, and this is early, I know, not by the Liberals, but by the Conservatives.
There was an NDP seat in Windsor, right now it is blue. There was one in London, right now it is blue. You go further east into Hamilton, there was an NDP seat, right now it is blue.
I know it's fashionable around here to refer to the progressive bloc. A lot of traditional NDP voters wouldn't regard themselves as on the left. They're for the little guy.
Sure.
And Pierre Poilievre has been fighting for the little guy.
Yes, many of these races would go in the opposite direction that you might think. In the end, the NDP would give up nearly 20 seats, divided almost evenly between Liberals and Conservatives.
We may emerge from tonight with both the Liberals and the Conservatives over 40% of the vote.
Yep.
You know the last time that happened?
Hit me.
1930.
In the next couple years, the Liberals and Conservatives alike are feasting on the political carcass of the NDP and their electorate.
I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed. Obviously, I'm disappointed that we could not win more seats, but I'm not disappointed in our movement.
So that was the NDP. But what about the Liberals and the Conservatives? Well, a lot of early Conservative momentum.
Liberals down 2 and Conservatives up 2. That's the kind of movement the Conservatives are happy to see coming out of Atlantic Canada.
Some of it turned out to be smoke and mirrors.
But just have a look at this. It's now down to a 28-vote lead. This has been happening in a lot of the ridings in Atlantic Canada where the advance vote is being counted late and where the Liberals did a really good job of getting their vote in early.
Yes, in riding after riding, we saw Conservative leads evaporate, which is explained by a record number of Canadians having voted early.
Elections Canada says a record 7.3 million people voted in those advance polls over the 4-day-long weekend.
More than 7 million Canadians. That's about a quarter of all eligible voters. And we know from surveys that many more Liberals than Conservatives took advantage of early voting. But here was the illusion. Just because someone voted first didn't mean they got counted first. In fact, all night, it was the opposite.
Liberals did quite well in the advance poll, but those polls tend to be much bigger. There's many votes to count in those boxes, so they take longer to count, and they often get reported at the end of the night.
So we ended up with all kinds of situations where individual races only started leaning more convincingly Liberal later in the evening.
The trend has not been late polls breaking to the Conservatives. Not in any of the close ridings we're watching. It was just Liberal, 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 flip, 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 flip.
Except even this had a hitch because things ran so late and there were so many early voting ballots yet to be counted, every major broadcaster called it quits before we knew how the story would end. So a riding like Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore in Ontario, where the Liberals were in second place by only a couple hundred votes, which way would that go? Who knows? Or Nunavut, where they were behind by 54 votes. Too close to call. Or how about Terrebonne, where the gap was just 28 votes. Forget it. In at least half a dozen cases, even if there was just one polling station left to report, it wouldn't have taken many of those as yet uncounted ballots to completely swing the result. Not just of those individual races, but of the shape of the Liberal mandate itself, from a minority to a majority.
I think this is what it looks like when we have a two-party system.
Yeah.
And the nights get long because it's a one-on-one battle. None of the usual assumptions allow us to know how this is going to end.
Now, here's what I will say. There was one thing that everyone did seem to agree on, and that is how unlikely, once upon a time, the Liberals were to win at all, given how every election poll for the last 2 years before Trump took office had basically sentenced the Liberals to death.
I look back to where we were as recently as December, and you know as well as I do that at that point people had totally written us off. People were even talking about whether the Liberals would retain official party status. And right now you are talking about what the strength of our government will be.
Yes, no matter the strength of the Liberal result,
Canada, your next government will be a Liberal minority government.
and no matter how long it took to get there, what this does add up to is a stunning political comeback. A Liberal Party that, remember, under Justin Trudeau was facing certain defeat until he quit and Donald Trump entered the equation.
President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us.
And in Mark Carney's wake, the NDP gutted. ending the night with just 7 seats, even their own leader failing to win his own seat.
We are only defeated if we stop fighting.
The Conservatives, they lost the election, and their leader also lost his seat. Though, even still, he'd like to stay on as leader if the party will have him.
It will be an honor to continue to fight for you and to be a champion of your cause as we go forward.
There is a maxim, one of my favorite political observers says about Canadian politics, that it tends towards the most boring possible outcome. I think we can say that is no longer true. The last few months, it has really felt like somebody took the snow globe of Canadian politics, shook them up. That's what happened again tonight.
And that is certainly true when you consider how much pressure there will be for the parties to work together. A minority government means, with the seat counts as they are, the Liberals need the support of either the Bloc, the NDP, or the Conservatives to get anything done. And if they can't get that support, we might all just have to do this again. Another election, perhaps sooner than most would